Welcome to Conversations with Counselors, a podcast where we hear what is on the hearts and minds of those who are passionate about biblical counseling and desire to bring the hope of Christ to those who are seeking it. My name is Curtis Heaton, and I am the Executive Director of the Canadian Biblical Counseling Coalition, an organization whose vision is to see every person in Canada have access to local biblical care and counseling. We do this by engaging, encouraging, and equipping the body of Christ for the work of biblical counseling. That's why this podcast exists, to encourage you and equip you. So let's dive in. In this episode of our podcast, I sat down with Gabriela Carter. Gabriela is the Care and Counseling Director at Central Community Church in Chilliwack, BC. Gabriela has years of experience working in the field of mental health, where she was trained to become a psychiatric nurse. She is certified as a biblical counselor, training instructor, and supervisor through the Association of Biblical Counselors. She is also a certified Christian trauma care provider. Along with holding a BA in psychology, she also has a master's degree in biblical counseling from Westminster Theological Seminary. When she's not counseling or training in the church, Gabriela is a homeschooling mom who loves spending time with her husband, 4 children, and various animals on their 1-acre homestead. Now let's listen in as we hear more from Gabriela. Well, welcome everyone. I'm here with Gabriela. Gabriela, welcome to the CBCC podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be able to do this, and it's been great getting to know you over the past year. And maybe just to start us off, I would love just for you to share with our audience, tell us a little bit about yourself, your family life, and some of the ministry that you're involved in, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm Gabriela. I live out here in Chilliwack, BC with my family. So I'm married and we have 4 children, our youngest now in kindergarten and our oldest in their first year of university.
Okay.
So quite the age range. And yeah, I do mostly homeschooling. I have one son who's taken a year off of homeschooling to go to a Christian school, but he's back to homeschooling again next year. So that's how I spend the majority of my time. We live on a little property here. So we've got some chickens and a big garden. And so we have a bit of a homesteading life, which is really awesome. We've just been here the last 3 years. And so getting into the lifestyle of like making bread and canning and growing food, which is really beautiful. And so, yeah, we love that. We've been at our church now, Central Community Church in Chilliwack, for 2.5 of those years. And when I came, I was very nearly done my master's in biblical counseling. And I just, even though I was very new to the church, I was like, hey, this is who I am. I would love to do something, use me however, but these are some ideas. And so I kind of convinced them to bring me on as a care and counseling director. And they welcomed me to do some things. The things that I'm doing there are kind of 3 areas of focus. One is just helping promote a culture of intentional helping relationships. So helping people understand that, yes, they are to intrude in others' lives. They are to be vulnerable with their own lives. And that's how we sharpen one another, knowing how to ask good questions, how to follow up, how to live in community that is according to the Great Commission, to disciple one another well. And the other area of focus is training some biblical counselors. So right away, when I took on my role, we became a training center through the Association of Biblical Counseling, and we started training. That we've had our first class of level 1 biblical counselors. They're graduating next week, which is super exciting. We have 22
Awesome.
Graduates.
Wow.
And
great.
The intention was that some of those graduates would just go back into their own ministries and just have the added skill and understanding of biblical counseling and how to live that out within their ministries. And some of those would actually become part of a care and counseling ministry where they are able to offer biblical counseling to people. And so we've we had people apply to become part of that team. We have 10 official members of that team now. They'll continue on to level 2 of the ABC training, and they're going to start seeing people at our church for counseling in September, which is super exciting. And then the third area of focus is preparing for a professional counseling center. So just having a venue where professional biblical counselors can be available for people to book them for counseling sessions, which it's very rare here in BC for that, especially biblical counseling center. And so that we're hoping to open in the fall of 2027. So that's what I'm doing.
Wow. Well, that's certainly a lot.
Yeah.
which is awesome and encouraging. I'm gonna go kind of back to the beginning, and then we'll just kind of catch up to the different things that you're talking about. So just talking about family, have you always been in BC? Like, is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I've actually moved 19 times.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So I was born in Brazil. And we traveled around a bit there. I was born in the south, and then my grandparents bought a farm, central Brazil. And so we kind of grew up, my brother and I, playing on his farm. And I think that's where my love of farming kind of started, and what this place here that I live in now kind of fulfills that sort of nostalgic longing. And then we moved to Canada when I was about 8, to Edmonton.
Okay.
It was very cold, and didn't know English. And so, yeah, our family just kind of, we had some support. But yeah, it was a really big transition. And then we just slowly moved west. And some of the moving was due to my dad's work, and then later just due to different life circumstances, and now mostly due to the expense of living here in the Lower Mainland. So
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's very interesting. So because I was going to ask you, where did the kind of the bug for homesteading come from? So you answered some of that question there, which is cool. So you had some experience growing up as a kid, and you're trying to help your kids have some of that experience too.
Yeah. As a kid, actually, when I was in Edmonton, every summer, my brother and I went to work on a farm, a buffalo ranch in Alberta. So for several years, that's what I did for my summer holidays, which was really, really cool.
Awesome. Oh, that's neat. And then the homeschooling piece. So are you doing some homeschooling for your kids as well, the ones that are at home?
Yeah, we started homeschooling in 2020, which is, I think a lot of people started at that time too. My daughter was just transitioning into high school, and we were a little bit weary of what that would look like. And so we thought, okay, let's maybe try Christian school. So we were in the process of applying, and then we had to homeschool for like public school. My husband was actually homeschooled K to 12, all his siblings. And so he was familiar with it. And we thought, well, why not try it? We'll try it for a year. And if everyone hates it, we will go back to public school. And so we tried it. It was probably one of the hardest kind of transitions, because I was pregnant. So I was about 7 months pregnant. I already had a baby that was 1 year old, and it was COVID. And I was trying, so I worked full time as a psychiatric nurse. And so I was trying to get some hours so that I could actually take a maternity leave. And so it was just it was a lot. But we did it. So after about a year and a half, I was like, yeah, I think this is a really good way to move forward. And we've been doing it ever since. My son, who's in the Christian school this year, is only there because of a complicated like transition to Chilliwack from his Surrey homeschool program. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, hearing you say that it was one of the hardest things you've done would certainly be comfort to my wife, because I think she feels like it's about the hardest thing we've ever done is homeschooling our kids. So
yeah, it is. I know someone asked me last week, they're like, do you like homeschooling? I said, I like it in the same way that I like going to the gym.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Hard work, but worth it when you see the results. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. And Do you mind talking about the psychiatric nurse part of it? Because I'd just be interested, because one of my questions for you was just how did you get into biblical counseling, and I'm maybe putting some of the pieces there as you just mentioned that. So just be curious to hear a little bit of that story, and then maybe the segue into biblical counseling over the years.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my first year of college, I took a psychology class, and right away I thought, this is so interesting. I really like it. It became sort of what I was drawn to, and decided to do a psych degree. And so continued to pursue that. It felt really sort of familiar to me in terms of like, that's how my mind worked. That's what I wanted to I wanted to work as a counselor. I kind of knew that, right? I was, my first year of college, I was 17. So I was like, this is what I want. And so a few years into my psych degree, I began to realize how long of a path that actually is to become a counselor. Is here in BC, especially, you need to have at least your master's. And, as a 18, 19-year-old, that those, 8 years feel like a lifetime away. And one of my classmates in my psych program, her mom worked in the psychiatric nursing department. And so I went with her, like, to get her lunch or something, and I discovered psychiatric nursing. And I thought, this is really cool because it's a very similar area, but within a couple of years, I could actually be practicing. And I thought, I'm going to take a break from my psych degree. I'm going to do psychiatric nursing, and then I can work as a psychiatric nurse while I finish my schooling. And actually have gained experience in the field, which was, it was really brilliant. That step that I took, I loved it. I loved my work. And then, so I finished my psych nursing. I went back, I finished my psych degree, and I started my master's in counseling and got pregnant right when I started. And I thought, okay, I'll just go finish that in 6 months or something. But of course, I did not.
Yeah.
And after that, my, the rug kind of got pulled out of my life, and sort of everything fell apart. What was going on in my marriage, it kind of became revealed to me. And this is where biblical counseling comes in, is I met some people at my church who were biblical counselors, and they started asking me questions. They began entering into my life, so to speak. And I came to understand the situation I was in my marriage, which was significantly abusive marriage. And I think through their guidance and support, they helped me to confront my then husband. The church supported me with a separation. And my husband then did not he was unrepentant. He ended up leaving and not coming back to sort of address any of the things that he was called to address. And so, so I had two young kids at that time, a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old. And those were very meaningful years of my life. It took a lot of biblical counseling, I would say, to even understand like what happened, what was wrong with it, what's actually right, what's to be corrected, and how do we deal with the confusion that was left. And it was a lot of learning. And I think that's where I realized this is actually true and good care. And the way that the church can come around someone as they did for me is just, there's no words to describe how powerful that can be in a person's life. And so from there, I just shifted my focus. Like, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to be as the people of God, is people who support others in this way, people who are interested and engage in the lives of people who are broken, and rescue them. And And once they're done rescuing them, they keep pointing them to Jesus and teaching them, discipling them. How do you live in ways that are honoring to God?
Wow, that is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a tough story, but also at the same time, I'm so encouraged that the Lord in His grace brought you to some people and a church that, stepped up to rally around you. That's just wonderful to hear, and the way that that's impacted your life, and also given you a passion to do the same for others.
Yeah. Yeah. So I lived as a single mom for 4 years, not really able to pursue biblical counseling studies. But
Mm-hmm.
I engaged in biblical counseling ministry, which was at my church, West Side in Vancouver.
Okay.
That was a beautiful time. And then once I was able to, I ended up getting remarried in 2018, which gave me the opportunity then to, even just financially be able to study again. So I went and did my master's in biblical counseling and slowly shifted from psychiatric nursing into opening my own practice as a biblical counselor, and now working at Central.
Okay. Wow. Very cool. And so your role, now that we kind of get to the church, to Central, I think you said it's been a couple of years now that you've been on staff there. Is that full time, or is it part time? I know because you've still got homeschooling kids and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I've been there just over a year, so I only.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it all happened very fast.
Yeah.
And initially I started. You see, there's like a difference between the amount of passion and vision that I have, and then the amount of time I can invest into it. And so I was like, let me do this thing. And then they said, okay, how many hours can you give? And I said, 4 hours. And so I started at only 4 hours a week.
Okay.
Just kind of putting little pieces into place, putting some documents together. So just kind of solidifying a vision. And then I moved up to 8, thinking like, oh yeah, there's definitely more than 4 hours a week that needs to happen. And so over the course of the year and a bit, I'm now at 15 hours a week.
Okay.
Which, yeah, I mean, it could be a full-time job, and I just try to fit it in when I can. And I love it. Like, I love that they allow me to do this, and I am a really efficient person. And so I would say those 15 hours that I put in are like really, really hardworking. But yeah, I love it. But I do need to just balance, right? Like I still need to take care of my household and manage my children and be present for my husband. And
yeah.
So.
Well, that's great. I as I've known you a little bit, and I know how efficient you are, when I hear you say you only work 15 hours a week, I'm amazed. You really do. You do a lot in that time frame. And even just hearing about what you guys have done in the last year with getting 22 people through ABC level 1. That's, yeah, good on you. I would say that's really cool. Yeah. And I'm sure the Lord has lots more in store in the days ahead. So one of the things that you were busy at in the last few months, something that was really exciting for us at the CBCC, was you were really instrumental in helping us get set up with a satellite site of our conference out in Chilliwack at Central. And that was kind of our first time doing this, and you were gracious to be our first guinea pigs in this. But it sounds like overall it was a great experience, and I'd love maybe for you just to talk a little bit about that and what were some of the highlights and different things you saw over that time that you guys were joining us as a satellite site virtually.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll start with the fact that when I went to the CBCC conference last year in Ontario, I just thought, man, this is amazing. How are we in BC so far behind? Like, how do they have so many biblical counselors here? And I thought, we need to make this better known. We need to connect people over on this side of the country. And so I really came back thinking, like, how do we do this? And so when the conference, as I was maybe hearing about it, I thought, I would love to, because I had heard that there were some live stream aspects, in different places. And I was like, I would love to do that at our church, but I don't want it to be just us sitting watching videos. Like, that's pretty boring.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's when I connected with you to say, like, can we bring in our own workshop speakers, and can we have it be more sort of a real thing? And thankfully, like, you guys were totally cool with collaborating. And yeah, so I think having some in-person speakers here, and having the bookstore, having some display tables, and again, like, a couple of the board members were able to join us and participate. That was all super special, and it made it have that feeling of like, yeah, this is a legitimate part of what CBCC is doing.
Yep.
And it really did. It connected people. There were people there who had no idea there were so many biblical counselors around. And so many, I mean, a few compared to over on your side of the country. And having people come who had never heard of biblical counseling before, and thinking, wow, this is actually amazing, and we need this at our church. I had one lady say to me, she's just kind of starting off her psych degree, and she's like, I think I need to change my education pathway.
Oh, wow.
Right? Or we had one lady, she wasn't sure kind of what to do with her education so far. She has kind of a certificate in clinical counseling or something like that. And so she right away went and registered for Westminster's MAC program, like starting this summer. And so those things were super encouraging. We also had someone say, it was a very good conference, and this is a gentleman who's very familiar with the whole biblical counseling culture, and he knows kind of people on both ends of the biblical counseling spectrum, I would say, in terms of their methodology.
Yeah.
And he said, it was done in such a way that it was not biased toward any form of philosophy or methodology within biblical counseling, but it was very loving. So the teaching was very encouraging for all of those that are working in the field or have this as their ministry.
Yeah. Well, that's really encouraging to hear, because it really, for us, I mean, we really just try to, I mean, the main thing, I remember when I started working for the CBCC, and when I was planning that first conference that I was going to be a part of as the executive director, I just remember coming into it thinking, if there's one thing I'd really want people to experience at our conferences, that they would be encouraged, because I know how taxing and difficult the work of counseling can be, and sometimes how discouraging it can be. And certainly when you're getting together in a room full of people that share the same passion, you want it to be encouraging. So we're really excited to hear and to see what God is doing on the West Coast, and we're super thankful that you were able to do this. And how many people did you end up having coming in the end? Because it was a pretty good sized group.
Yeah, so I think it was about 86 in the end.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like that's And I know you've got big dreams and big hopes for the future, but that is a great start. And even looking at our the conference that we run, in Ontario over the last, I don't know, I think the first one was in 2017, something like that. And I think it might have been 80 people or something like that, So to see the way it's grown over this time has just been just wonderful and encouraging. And we're excited to see this kind of thing grow too, like these opportunities, hopefully in other parts of the country, because we realize Canada is so vast. And, asking people to fly out to Ontario for a conference. Many times when people are, they love biblical counseling, but they're doing it, as a volunteer in their church, or it's not necessarily a vocation, or they're not making a lot of money at it, is a tough thing to ask. So we're thankful that you guys offered this on the West Coast, and looking forward to seeing how God will use it. As you're thinking about your experience with it, and if a church, maybe somebody else from another church in some other part of the country happens to be listening to this podcast, what would you say to kind of encourage them if they're thinking about this kind of thing, but maybe it feels daunting, or they're like, I don't know if we've got the resources to do that. how would you encourage them to consider it?
Yeah, I am very fortunate to be at the church where I'm at because they have really talented people, right? So the first thing that I kind of worked on was getting some of the information, like graphics and stuff together. And so our media guy, he was just super helpful in like creating a web page where people could see what was happening and register. And so I would say just plan ahead. Like I think we started last summer to do some of these things, and so plan ahead. Pick speakers that if they're having their in-person speakers, which I would definitely recommend having in-person speakers. Pick speakers that can complement the main topics well, and that would feel adequate to the audience, right? And so depending on who these people are that they're inviting, are the speakers at a level that would be helpful for the audience? And yeah, I would say like I did a lot of promoting here on our end. And so sent invitations and followed up on invitations to churches, schools, all kinds of things. We put some social media invitations out. And so, yeah, really be inclusive to who you're inviting, because you never know where there are people here and there who are really involved in biblical counseling, but would not otherwise, you wouldn't know of them. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Cause I've been amazed at the people that end up finding out about our conference. I know we could actually probably do a better job in promoting it. But I love that it's sort of, in a sense, a grassroots thing where so much of it gets promoted by somebody's come, they've had a great experience, and they're like, hey, we've got to bring a bigger group next year. Like even in your story, you said, you came out last year, you were excited by it, and you were like, how can we do something in BC that would be meaningful? And I know I spoke with one person this year who, I think there was just two of them that came from their church to the conference in Oakville, and then this year they brought like a group of 27 or 28 people from their church, and I'm like, that's amazing. That's what really excites me, is seeing that kind of growth happening, and particularly within churches, churches getting on board. So yeah, so if I'll just put that plug out, if you're somebody who's interested in doing that with your church somewhere else in Canada, reach out to me or reach out to Gabriela. I'm sure she'd be willing to share her wisdom in that. But getting back to Central, just tell us a little bit of, so I know you've talked about the long-term vision of kind of having a biblical counseling center of sorts there, like what, and just as early as next year. I think that's very ambitious. So as you're working towards that, what are some of the things you guys are putting in place? And just share a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So I think all of this is a preparation, right? And so that was the vision from when I first started my role. And I think even, preparing the church culture, raising up some biblical counselors, helping for our church to see what it feels like to have that kind of counseling. Our 22 students each did a practicum. So they're meeting with people as part of their training. And so each of those 22 counselees will be able to tell. And I've heard several of them talking like, this is not what I expected. This was a beautiful experience, and I really appreciated it. And so as more people experience biblical counseling, I believe that they'll long for that, right? They'll long for that kind of hope that's provided, that kind of comfort, and that's kind of speaking truth and love that they actually need in their struggles. And so the preparation is really preparing people's expectations and understanding of what it is before we offer it. And having the conference even at our church and in our area is a preparation for like, okay, this is what we're doing here. Biblical counseling is a thing. Some of the professional, clinical counselors, do they want to have some training in biblical counseling so that they can kind of move into this other work? So coming from secular mental health, I know the moral dilemma that it has. And so I'm sure that many people who work as clinical counselors who are Christians do experience that moral distress, thinking, I need to do different, right? And so here's an opportunity for them. Here's an opportunity for them to practice out of their faith completely, not just trying to squeeze in a sentence here or there within their secular methodology.
Yeah.
And so I think that's more the preparation that we've been focusing on. And I mean, we're still trying to work out facilities. We're still trying to figure out sort of processes and procedures and hiring and all that kind of stuff. We're not even there yet. Yeah. But I believe that God is working in this, right? Like even just the way that he's kind of placed me there in a church that was really wanting this already, hoping for this kind of a movement, and everything that's happened so far, and the hunger for people to be trained in this way, to experience what biblical counseling means. I think he has, this is fully orchestrated by him, and I'm kind of the puppet that he's, I tell people sometimes, that movie Ratatouille?
Yes. Yeah.
How he, the boy, I can't remember his name now. The rat just kind of makes his hands go and do whatever it is
pulling
for
on his
cooking,
hair. Yeah.
cooking the recipe. And so that's how I feel I am, right? Like God is just like, okay, move your hand here, add some salt, add some of this, and he will create the ministry, the center. I do believe I'm his puppet at this point.
Yeah, or
puppet in a good way. I don't know if there's there's a bad way to understand that, but in the Ratatouille sort of way.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah. That's beautiful, and I have no doubt God's going to provide and direct as you go along, as he already has. And I'm just excited because I think, and I don't have clearly as deep of a knowledge as you would have about the state of things in British Columbia, but I know that, when we sort of look at the landscape in Canada, culturally speaking, or even say politically, we know that the West Coast tends to be on the more liberal side. And so maybe you can just speak to like some of the challenges and why something like this is coming at a time when it's really needed.
Yeah, well, coincidentally, they are regulating counseling right when we're planning on opening up our center. And so we don't actually know what that will mean specifically for us. But we know that this is very uncommon, and many of the people who have intended to do something like this, even a biblical counseling ministry within their church, they are not often successful. And so I think it does come with a lot of prayer and courage and trusting that, if God wants for this to happen, which I believe he does, he will make a way for it. And so I don't know if they come to our door and say, sorry, you can't have a biblical counseling center because of this and this. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't try for it and we can't continue this pursuit. And yeah, I think a lot of people would be discouraged or be like, well, this isn't going to work. Right. But I think it's obedient to work towards something like this, being aware and working within the boundaries that we're given in terms of government regulation. But I think there are really wise ways of doing that, and you can continue forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're in a day and age where, the words "shrewd as serpents, innocent as doves is really the reality. I just keep marveling at the stuff that, our politicians are saying week in and week out, and some of the things that are being pushed through. And I just think, the opportunity for us to be a light is so great and is so needed, because people are hurting, people are struggling. Like I don't know what your church is seeing in terms of the culture around you, but I just know like our church, or my home church here in Ontario, just amazed at the amount of new people coming to faith. Like I just sort of feel like we're on the cusp of seeing, some kind of a revival of sorts, and because people's lives have become, it's economically, it's socially, it's all the struggles, right, that are putting pressure on people. And as those things become more intense, they're looking for something that's going to give them hope, that's going to, put a stable footing under their feet, and so I think the church has a wonderful opportunity there.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you, Gabriela. This has been wonderful. If there's one way we could be praying for you, and I should be asking this at the end of every podcast, but if there's one way that we could be praying for you and for Central, what could we be praying for as you guys plan ahead and move ahead with working towards this counseling center there?
Yeah, I think for the hearts of the people in our church and community to really have courage and boldness to speak the gospel for the struggles of life, right? And as our counseling team develops, pray for them that they would not fall prey to lies and attacks of the enemy as they're, moving forward to do this work. As we prepare for the center, that, we would not be discouraged by the barriers that come our way. And for me, as I lead, right, it's my capacity is limited in terms of time, and so just for energy, I guess, and perseverance through it.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to pray right now, and then we'll close
Thank you.
it off. Father, I just want to lift up Gabriela and Central Community Church. Lord, we're just so thankful for just their willingness to step in and fill a need that is so needed out in Western Canada, Lord. And I pray that as you're raising up people, I pray that their passion for you would grow, and that they would have courage to speak the truth in love, to be loving neighbors and friends and brothers and sisters in Christ. And Lord, would you make that church a beacon of hope in that community? And Lord, would you be with Gabriela and give her wisdom as she leads this team, and give her energy. I know her capacity is limited, but Lord, you're the one who multiplies capacity. And so I know even with her 15 hours a week, Lord, you can do far more within that with her efforts, Lord. And so we commit her to you and commit the church to you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Well, thank you. This has been great. And I look forward to seeing what this next year holds, and how the Chilliwack satellite is going to grow next year, because I'm praying we'll pass that 100 mark for sure.
Yeah. Thanks. It's exciting times.
Thank you for joining us. I want to remind you to go to canadianbcc.ca to find more ways to connect with us. Be sure to tune in every other week as we dive into more conversations in biblical counseling.